Thanks everyone for your thoughts, and we really hope that our colleagues, friends, and family are doing okay. Well, again, welcome. It's wonderful to see the room filled with people from different countries, from different disciplines gathered today. What makes today's conversation special is the fact that we're bringing together whole ecosystems of people working in and towards a common vision. We have scientists, we have NGOs, we have donors, we have coastal communities, and most importantly, we have fishers here with us. I want to remind us that when we talk about 30 by 30, we're not just talking about a global target. We're talking about people, about a living network of communities already turning ambition into action. You're part of that, so congratulations. Across the Caribbean, we see inspiring examples of what local leadership can achieve. Communities are testing clean technologies to reduce costs and pollution while protecting their fishing grounds. Others are managing marine areas through ecosystem-based approaches that balance conservation and livelihoods. And many are restoring mangroves, reefs, seagrasses, meadows that protect biodiversity and the people who depend on them. So 30 by 30, it's not just an aspiration. It's becoming an instrument for resilience. It gives us a shared language to connect conservation, climate adaptation, equity, and hope. Today's session is about that intersection, where local innovation meets global ambition. You'll hear examples of how clean energy, science, and community leadership can come together to make marine conservation more effective and more just. From the perspective of Environmental Defense Fund, EDF, we see this as a chance to connect technology and finance with incredible knowledge that already is in place. Financial and institutional systems that facing conversations during this session to answer those questions and getting the knowledge and the experience from a lot of you to answer those difficult questions. Together, we hope this conversation helps us strengthen the bridges between funders, creativity. Will take all of us working together. Thank you again for being work in water sanitation, environment, and climate change projects and policies. A Suriname native, Tanya served in Guyana and the IDB in Red Plus and the regional office of FAO in Chile. She holds a master's degree in both hydrology, civil engineering, and conservation of biodiversity in the Caribbean. Thank you, Tanya, for helping us making this session possible, and I'll pass the floor to you now.
I'm going to take it here so that everybody can see me. Is that better? So, since the room is so small, porque la sala es un poco pequeña, si pueden acercarse, por favor, porque se ve un poco. There are spaces. Please let us be not too far. The idea is that we can also interact, that you can ask questions. So don't be shy. Por favor. Entonces, gracias. Thank you so much. It's okay. I had a few slides, but that's okay. I don't want to take too much time because this is really just the introduction. And we really want to go into where we can demonstrate some of our projects that the CBF has funded in the region. So after this very short introduction, I just wanted to say thank you so much for showing up. I know it's early. It's a long week for a lot of us. So I really appreciate you taking your time and hearing a little bit about the work of the CBF, the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, but also the EDF, the Environmental Defense Fund, with whom we have a couple of projects actually in Cuba and in Haiti. So for the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, I think I had two announcements basically to share. One is one of the mechanisms as how the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, so you hear the word fund for those who do not know the CBF as yet, the aim and the objective, the mission of a fund is to provide funding. So right now, we have a call for proposals open. It's a circular economy facility. So those who have amazing ideas for circular economy projects, the call is open. It funds projects between 1 and 3 million US dollars. Unfortunately, as with any call and as with any donor, I do have a list of eligible countries. So I do invite everybody to go on the website of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and then look for the open call for the Advanced Circular Economy Facility, the ACE facility. The information should be on there. We had a QR code, but that's fine. If you find the CBF's ACE open call for proposals, it is open. And we invite those countries that are eligible to apply for funding. So that's one announcement that I had to make. The other announcement, which was another QR code that links back also to our website, is that we have recently signed funding agreements with the INSU Resilient Solutions Fund and with ORA. I'm going to try to figure out, ORA stands for Oceans for the Resilient Alliance, something. It's a long acronym, sorry for that. So with ORA, and from ORA and ISF, the CBF is now going to embark on a design for reef risk insurance mechanisms for the Caribbean. So we're talking about more the insular Caribbean, so the islands for now we're piloting would be the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Lucia. And for those who want to know more, I think I can redirect them to the website of MarFund, who actually already has the mechanism established, up and running. There are always challenges, but they are already, actually, we're really looking to learn from them to develop the reef risk insurance mechanism for the Caribbean, the insular Caribbean islands. Oh, and it's up. Should I? Yeah? Let me just put yeah, so maybe the first one, the first QR code, because I think we missed that in the introductions. For those who really would like to provide their email addresses, we don't have like a registration form, but we have this form. So it also gives us consent to use any pictures we take, but it also captures us, the participant list. So if everybody could please use, por favor, si pueden escanear el código, y llenar el formulario con su, yeah, now I think the translation is going to get crazy, so let me just continue in English. So please fill out your information so we can also have your email addresses and we can always share then the information and the PowerPoint presentations and be in touch with you guys. So that is just the QR code that we wanted to share first. So let me just give everybody a moment to do that before we. All right. So next, I guess. Well, I already spoke about it. It's fine. So the next, I think it's just the two QR codes that I wanted to show. The next one, this one. So I mentioned this one. Let me stand on the other side of the QR code. So I did mention this one. The circular economy call for proposals is open. So again, for anyone who is interested, please scan the QR code. Check, of course, if your country is eligible. And then there is, I think all the information should be there on the website. And if you have questions, I think there is even an email address because it has to be an open and transparent process. So all your questions need to be sent to this general email address from the CBF. So that is that for the ACE facility. And I think we can go to the, we have, sorry. Yes, the clicker works. And this is the other QR code that you can scan. We don't have much information up on the website as yet, but we're very excited to launch this new mechanism for the CBF and really looking into and how applicable it is right now when we talk about hurricanes, because the reef risk insurance mechanism, the whole objective, right, is to make sure that the reefs can be cleaned up, that we can remove the damage done to the reefs after a hurricane. So a parametric insurance that is triggered by wind speed, and it could help the communities to clean up the reefs and make sure that the coral reefs can survive after extreme events such as a hurricane. So that's this project that we're very excited to kickstart. And I think that was it. Thank you so much. And handing back over to Eduardo. That was all.
Thank you so much, Sania. Thank you so much for our tech guys. We had some issues with the connection, but we're back. So now I welcome my colleague, Tacho Berboet. He's going to help us moderate the session that is called Lessons Learned from CBF EBA Projects. So I'll pass the floor to Tacho. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eduardo, and I will try not to touch this computer just to ensure that we don't lose our presentation. So good morning, everyone. My name is Tadjo Bervuts, and I serve as the technical lead for the Sustainable Blue Finance and Economies project at the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. And it is indeed a pleasure to moderate this session on lessons learned from ecosystem-based adaptation projects, also supported through the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. These initiatives have shown how nature-based solutions can strengthen coastal resilience, restore vital ecosystems, and support communities in adapting to a changing climate. The following presentations highlight practical experiences from across the region, demonstrating how local innovation, partnerships, and sound financing translate into measurable conservation impacts. Each speaker will be presenting their intervention. After, we will be open for discussion with the audience. I'd like to invite the speakers up to take their seats after I provide a very brief introduction. We do have some excellent interventions from some excellent innovation specialists. But because of that, I do ask that each speaker keeps to a maximum of 7 minutes, and you can watch the countdown timer on the screen in front of the stage. So in terms of introductions, it is my distinct pleasure to invite up to the stage Omar Cantillo Ferreiro, who is the director of Cuba's National Center for Protected Areas on the SITMA. He is a nuclear engineer and innovation specialist and has led national projects advancing in environmental management and sustainable development. Omar, please come up to the stage to a warm round of applause. Next, I would like to invite to the stage Dorca Cobian Rojas, who is a marine biologist with over 2 decades of experience in coral reef ecology and coastal conservation. She serves as an associate researcher at, and bear with me, the Guanahacabibes National Park and the Ecovida Center of SITMA. Warm round of applause for Dorca. Next, I would like to invite to the stage Paula Lewis, who is the partnership manager at the Global Island Partnership, GLISPA. And she is advancing island-led collaboration for biodiversity and resilience. And she also supports community-based conservation through SPECTO in Grenada. Warm round of applause, please, for Paula. And then for this session, last but certainly not least, I would like to invite back to the stage Eduardo Bonet Moron, who is the Senior Manager for Global Shipping Operations at the Environmental Defense Fund and Chair of the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute. He bridges shipping decarbonization with ocean conservation, promoting sustainable ocean management across the Caribbean. Warm round of applause again for Lalo. So with that, our first speaker is Omar. So Omar, the floor is yours. And please remember to keep to the 7-minute time frame. Thank you. Yes?
Go the next one. Go to the next slide.
Oh, the next slide? Sure. Spectre goes first. My apologies. And quite rightfully so, ladies first. So Paula, the word is yours.
Yes. This or this? What do we press? Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share about the work being done by the St. Patrick Environmental Community Tourism Organization, known as SPECTO. SPECTO is a community-based volunteer organization. Its primary focus is environmental education and awareness, the protection of the endangered leatherback turtle, and the creation of alternative livelihoods in environmental conservation. Most of our work is centered around the Liverwell wetland, a designated Ramsar site and one of Grenada's most important coastal ecosystems. So the picture you're seeing is what the wetlands looked like many years ago before tourism development and the passage of Hurricane Beryl. In July 2024, Hurricane Beryl devastated this wetland, destroying over 90% of its mangrove and tree cover, damaging access pathways, the boardwalk, and disrupting the ecological balance of the area. In response, SPECTO launched the post-burial recovery of the Liverwell wetland, which is currently on the way. It aims to restore wetlands' ecological function, strengthen community stewardship, and contribute to Grenada's national biodiversity and climate objectives. The project is funded mainly by the Grenada Sustainable Development Trust Fund, with financing provided by AFD through the Caribbean Regional Architecture of Biodiversity under the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. Sorry. This is what it looked like. The top picture, you would see there was some development, and then the other picture shows you what it looked like following the passage of Hurricane Beryl. The project has 5 key focus areas: ecosystem restoration, community empowerment and leadership, sustainable livelihoods and ecotourism revival, biodiversity protection, and climate resilience. So far, we have undertaken the following activities. We've conducted a rapid assessment, which allow us to evaluate the post-hurricane impacts and explore the natural regeneration potential. We've cleared pathways and debris, restoring access for restoration activities. We've reinstalled the interpretive signs, and these early actions have helped establish access, rebuild community morale, and reconnect people with the wetlands. The other activities to be undertaken, some of them are currently on the way now, includes the replanting of the mangroves, the boardwalk reconstruction. We're in the process of starting an in-depth ecological assessment of the area. We will continue with our community engagement, and we are strongly advocating for a monitoring and management plan to be established for the site, because although the site is Ramsar designated, it is not recognized as a protected area nationally. The project supports and advances the GBF targets 2 and 3. It supports Grenada's CBD and Ramsar obligation, and it contributes to SDGs 14 and 15. And it also demonstrates how local leadership delivers delivers national impact. So what are the lessons learned? Of course, the project has not been without its challenges. As a small organization, we have staffing capacity issues. We rely mainly on our passion and volunteer. We do not really have any paid persons for the NGO. Short project cycles, government bureaucracy, And sometimes, as I said, as a volunteer organization, donor engagement can sometimes feel endless. And we also have the issue of the need for consistent funding to sustain the project and monitoring. But we've also had some wins. We've strengthened relationships with our key stakeholders, the community, the ministries of climate resilience. We've had local residents expressing greater interest and engaging in conservation activities. There is enhanced community awareness and engagement, and it has also strengthened our ability as an organization in project management and implementation. Sorry. So the lessons learned from these: early action matters. Even modest efforts to reopen access and mobilize a community builds momentum and hope. Partnerships are critical. Collaboration among communities, government, and donors ensures sustainability and alignment. We need flexible, predictable funding, which allows adaptation to field realities and sustain progress between project cycles. Capacity building turns short-term recovery into long-term stewardship. Community ownership is key. We really could not have done this project without the stakeholders, the community members, the volunteers. And so engaging residents from the start builds long-term stewardship and helps ensure sustainability and ownership. Flexibility in implementation also matters. Adapting to a post-disaster challenge and leveraging partnership can help keep projects on track even under difficult circumstances. And we also have to say that donors must see themselves as partners, not just as funders. And grantees must also see themselves as equals in co-creating the work. There must be collaborative partnerships where power is shared and the focus is not just on inputs, but on ownership. These insights underscore that effective restoration is not just about funding. It's about trust, inclusion, and time. It's not just about replanting mangroves. It's about restoring relationships with nature, within communities, and between institutions. It is a chance to imagine what successful development partnerships can look like, because when island communities lead and donors walk alongside, not ahead, the outcomes are not only stronger, they last. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. And indeed, when island communities lead, we can effect really effective change. And also thank you so much for those important insights, especially considering what the region is now going through, will go through in terms of the impacts of climate change. And also thank you for such excellent timekeeping. Thank you so much. Next, we have Omar. Apologies, Omar, for the false start, but the floor is yours. So please, for your presentation.
Bueno, muchas gracias al Fondo Caribeño de la Biodiversidad, al Fondo para la Defensa del Medio Ambiente y a la Sociedad para la Conservación de la Vida Silvestre, que entre otras organizaciones han hecho posible la presencia de Cuba en este importante taller de intercambio de experiencias. Bueno, aquí lo que vamos a mostrar es los resultados de un proyecto que estamos recién finalizando en Cuba y referido sobre todo a la adaptación basada, aplicando soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para incrementar la resiliencia costera y la capacidad de adaptación al cambio climático en áreas protegidas de Cuba. Es un proyecto que se alineó coherentemente con las principales políticas y estrategias nacionales y también con los compromisos asumidos por el país en importantes acuerdos internacionales. Entre ellos, debemos referir la meta 3 de Kunming, Montreal, sobre todo la meta 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 23, que en gran medida fueron satisfechos por este proyecto. También queremos referirnos a que está también coherentemente articulado con el Plan de Estado para el enfrentamiento al cambio climático en Cuba hasta los largos plazos del 2100. Este proyecto, con un financiamiento de 1,3 millones, con una meta bien definida de diseñar e implementar soluciones basadas en la naturaleza para lograr una mayor resiliencia socioecológica en las áreas protegidas y las comunidades asociadas a las mismas en Cuba. Trabajó de manera priorizada los ecosistemas, arrecifes de coral, manglares, vegetación de costa arenosa y los pastos marinos. Trabajó también las especies de las aves acuáticas y marinas, las especies exóticas invasoras, la casuarina y la cébala ducada. También definió importantes alternativas para el desarrollo económico de las comunidades asociadas a estas áreas protegidas, que en gran medida son las de menor índice de desarrollo humano, no solo en Cuba, sino también a nivel internacional. En ese sentido, el proyecto se concentró en 4 áreas protegidas, 2 parques nacionales: Parque Nacional Alejandro de Humboldt en el oriente del país, el Parque Nacional Ciénaga de Zapata y los refugios de vida silvestre Corona de San Carlos y Laguna Maya. A ello están asociadas 9 comunidades. 3 objetivos bien definidos. El primero, mejorar la capacidad de las áreas protegidas para integrar la gestión y protección de los hábitats marinos costeros, restaurar el hábitat marino costero y aumentar la sensibilización climática y la creación de capacidades para la adaptación basada en ecosistemas. Referido a la restauración del ecosistema de costa arenosa, fueron restauradas 369 hectáreas. Referido a la restauración de los manglares, se restauraron casi 700 hectáreas. En los temas de restauración de corales, se trabajó en el refugio de vida silvestre Laguna de Maya, donde se pudo observar que la salud de los ecosistemas de arrecife de coral en esa área protegida gozan de una buena salud. Se registró un valor general de cobertura de corales en el arrecife superior de más del 26%, lo que se considera alto. El mayor número respecto al área protegida Ciénaga de Zapata, aquí las condiciones fueron contrarias. Se observó un estado de salud en desventaja. La diversidad, aunque es una diversidad amplia, el estado de salud del ecosistema de coral no es el adecuado. Se reportó por primera vez en la costa norte de Cuba el desove de 5 especies de corales de Acropora palmata, Acropora cervicornis y el híbrido de Orbicea annularis. De particular importancia puede señalarse la expedición al Golfo de Cazones, que es donde se pudo evaluar el estado de salud de los pastos marinos de esta zona del país, considerada la mayor reserva de pasto marino en Cuba y que son tenidos en cuenta en la estrategia que elabora el país para la participación en el mercado del carbono. Respecto a la evaluación oceanográfica, se pudo constatar el incremento de la temperatura media del mar, lo cual propició una estrategia para el manejo pesquero del país en los próximos años. De igual medida, fueron evaluadas 11 alternativas económicas identificadas para el desarrollo de las comunidades asociadas a las áreas protegidas, muchas de las cuales se están implementando en la actualidad. Respecto a la tarea de comunicación y divulgación, se creó una imagen del proyecto, se brinda información en el sitio web del Centro Nacional de Área Protegida, se aplica con éxito la estrategia de comunicación en una página en Instagram y Facebook, se han realizado 8 audiovisuales, se han establecido programas en la televisión nacional y se han escrito un grupo importante de artículos, divulgación y artículos promocionales. En gran medida, estimados compañeros, estos son los resultados muy rápidos. Lo más complicado de este proyecto es tenerlo que resumir en 5 minutos, pero se ha hecho mucho trabajo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Omar, for highlighting the interrelationship between ecosystems, species, and the economic dimensions of protected area management, and indeed the leadership that Cuba is taking in this regard. Now I would like to invite to the stage Eduardo to give his intervention. So Lalo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Omar. Thank you, Tatio. As you can tell, lots of work being done. Well, good morning again, everyone. As I mentioned before, my name is Eduardo Bonemoron, Senior Manager of Global Shipping Operations Program with Environmental Defense Fund. And today I'd like to share how electrifying small vessels can help build a more resilient blue future for coastal communities. This story is really about people, some of you in this room, and how clean energy can become a tool of empowerment and ocean conservation. At EDF, our global shipping team works at the intersection of clean energy, science, innovation, justice, finance, and communication. You heard some of my colleagues yesterday talking about some of the technology that is being implemented for forecasting, including the participation of fishing communities. This is another example of how we're working together in different disciplines. And all these things come together every single day. By focusing on small boats, we see one of the fastest and most human ways to cut emissions, while also creating benefits people can feel right away. So EDF works with the Oceans Program, mainly working with fisheries management. I'm now also representing the energy program. So this project is about merging different disciplines, understanding the complexity of energy transition and how that can actually be part of the solution for protected areas and fisheries management. So the initiative that I'm going to be presenting here is about co-design. As some of you know, we don't really come with the answers. We start by listening. On many small islands, boats are part of daily life. They move people, food, and livelihoods. But when fuel prices go up and down, and everything depends on imported fuel, it brings a lot of stress and uncertainty for families. I know some of you experience that this day to day. Electric boats can change that. They are quieter, cleaner, and cheaper to operate. But the transition must connect with local needs, with fisheries, with livelihoods, and with a bigger picture of sustainability. So at EDF, we decided to start working in the Bahamas. We've been working there for about 7 years. And again, some of you have been part of that amazing path. Thank you for that. So we already have trust and relationships. So something essential when time is limited. Fuel was really the main issue in this conversation. Some fishers, as you may know, spend up to 40% of their income just on gas, sometimes even paying $10 per gallon and waiting a week or more for delivery. And beyond the cost, those same boats pollute air and water, damaging the ecosystems that sustain people's lives. So, to answer these complex questions, we partnered with the University of the Bahamas, the Bahamas Sea Cadet Association, and Photon Marine. This is an electric boat company. And we organized community meetings to listen how people use their boats, what they need, and what they worry about. It wasn't just about the technology, it was about understanding how this change could fit into real life. We saw some photos there, and maybe some of you are in those photos. And what we found actually was pretty positive. People were open and curious. They saw how electric boats could save money, reduce pollution, and make life easier. We gathered both technical data and community stories, showing what works and what needs to improve. We identified 4 strong opportunities for small boat electrification. You can see, well, those 4 options are in this slide, and this is a product of these conversations with communities. And financing remains a big challenge. Small landlords need flexible, realistic models. And one great idea came from the community itself: charging systems that double as energy hubs, keeping people connected during storms or blackouts. The co-benefits are big and really go beyond just fuel savings. It opens new jobs for technicians, for young people interested in marine technology. Less air and noise pollution means fishing is more enjoyable. Electric systems can also share power from boat to boat or boat to grid. And saving money on fuel means more time for family, not just longer days at sea. All this supports Bahamas' very ambitious goal of reaching 30% renewable energy by 2030. Now we are moving from learning to doing. Together with our partners, we're focusing on what really matters: electrifying small boats, co-designing local solutions, and building renewable energy hubs. We're also looking to train people to lead this change and testing finance models that make it possible. The goal is very simple: turn this work into a model that others can use: clean tech, smart finance, and a strong community leadership. Now we're getting ready for the next phase, the most exciting one, actually getting boats on the water. We'll keep learning from the communities, mapping energy needs, running design workshops, and testing different boat types. At the same time, we're creating a simple toolkit for partners, so projects like this can grow in other islands too. It's not just about finance or technology. It's also about training people locally so they can lead and maintain this transition over time. As I mentioned before, electrification is not just about cleaner boats. It's about building resilience. Clean energy becomes a driver for conservation. Charging hubs can become local centers for collaboration and governance. Electric boats can help with monitoring and enforcement inside marine protected areas. And when we link clean energy with restoring mangroves, reefs, and seagrasses, we strengthen both ecosystems and economies. In the end, it's about empowering local leadership to bring the 30 by 30 vision to life. Of course, there's a lot of challenges. First, the upfront cost. We need blended finance combination grants, combining grants, loans, and maybe carbon credits to make it work. Second, trust. After many short-term projects, we need models where fishers can test and gradually own the technology, like pay as you save or cooperatives. And third, infrastructure. Many islands don't have charging stations or policies yet. That's where partnerships can help, combining tourism, conservation, and energy access in one shared platform. So to close, I just want to say that clean energy connects everything: climate, people, and the ocean. Electrifying small boats might sound technical, but for coastal families, it's a way to take control of their future. Thank you very much, and I hope we can work together to make this transformation real.
Thank you so much, Eduardo, for that energizing talk, all pun intended, on how vessels can increase livelihoods, sustainability, and resilience for our region. Now, for this session, last but certainly not least, I would like to invite to the lectern Dorca to give her intervention. Thank you.
Bueno. Buenos días, mi nombre es Dorca Gobián, formo parte del equipo del Parque Nacional Guanacavives, que se ubica en el extremo occidental de Cuba. Este resultado, les voy a estar presentando resultados de un esfuerzo conjunto de varias instituciones cubanas y organizaciones no gubernamentales enfocado a la restauración y al manejo comunitario de ecosistemas costeros. El objetivo de nuestro proyecto fue fortalecer la resiliencia de los ecosistemas marinos costeros y contribuir a la adaptación al cambio climático mediante acciones participativas con las comunidades costeras. La ejecución de nuestro proyecto fue durante 3 años, del 2021 a 2024, y bueno, el financiamiento estuvo a cargo del Fondo Caribeño de la Biodiversidad, y el mismo fue administrado por The Ocean Foundation en la persona de Fernando Breto, que lo tenemos en la sala. Y por la parte cubana, la ejecución estuvo a cargo de la Agencia de Medio Ambiente de Cuba. Las acciones principales de este proyecto estuvieron enfocadas a la restauración de corales, la restauración de manglares y al monitoreo y al uso del sargazo. Como participantes tuvimos desde República Dominicana, nos estuvo apoyando la Fundación de Estudios Marinos, Fundemar, y por Cuba tuvimos varias instituciones cubanas dedicadas a las ciencias del mar, como el Acuario Nacional de Cuba, el Centro Nacional de Áreas Protegidas, el Centro de Investigaciones Marinas, y sobre todo participaron las comunidades locales, que eran nuestro principal objetivo, trabajar con ellas. El proyecto trabajó en 2 áreas fundamentales al sur de Cuba, 2 parques nacionales, o sea, Guanacavives y Jardines de la Reina, que son 2 áreas emblemáticas de nuestro Sistema Nacional de Áreas Protegidas, sobre todo porque resaltan en sus resultados de monitoreo, investigación y manejo. Durante la presentación les estaré dando los resultados que logramos en el Parque Nacional Guanacavives, que para ubicarlos, este parque se ubica en el extremo más occidental de Cuba, tiene una posición geográfica privilegiada porque limita al sur con el Mar Caribe y al norte con el Golfo de México, lo que hace que participe en importantes procesos de conectividad de diferentes recursos marinos. Además, presenta elevados valores naturales, tanto naturales y culturales y sociales, lo que le hace acreedora de diferentes categorías científicas, de diferentes reconocimientos, como Reserva de Biosfera, Parque Nacional, sitio de expo en el 2012, también formamos parte de la Red Golfo, y además somos un sitio de esperanza. Este proyecto permitió, continuar con el fortalecimiento de las capacidades, sobre todo de las comunidades locales. Por primera vez se pudo capacitar a miembros de las comunidades como buzos, o sea, con certificaciones de buceo. Además, también fueron certificados en metodologías o fueron entrenados en técnicas de restauración sexual y asexual. En este proceso jugaron un papel fundamental Fundemar y SICOR, que internacional, que también es una ONG que se dedica fundamentalmente a la restauración de corales. Ellos permitieron que estancias en República Dominicana en su laboratorio para aprender procesos de fertilización asistida. Y también participaron con nosotros en numerosas expediciones científicas donde ahí enseñaban de forma directa cómo se podían realizar todos estos procesos y también contribuyeron al montaje de un laboratorio. Además, también realizamos varias capacitaciones en las instituciones de Cuba. El proyecto permitió que nosotros continuáramos realizando nuestras acciones de restauración asexual que veníamos realizando desde el 2017, ya que contamos con 2 viveros de coral que están conformados alrededor de 42 estructuras artificiales, donde realizamos técnicas de microfragmentación y fragmentación. Hemos logrado un 5% de incremento en la cobertura de coral vivo y se han restaurado alrededor de 1.000 metros cuadrados de arrecife. Con respecto a la restauración sexual, logramos reportar a partir del 2021 el desove de 8 especies de coral y realizamos la fertilización asistida en 5 especies que se muestran en la diapo, logrando más del 70% de fertilización. También logramos alcanzar reclutas que cultivamos en piscinas y logramos montar un laboratorio para poder trabajar con la restauración de corales controlando diferentes variables ambientales y lograr un mayor % de supervivencia. Hemos aplicado también técnicas de fotogrametría, o sea, para evaluar el estado de salud de los corales y bueno, también estamos monitoreando la temperatura. También pudimos realizar diferentes actividades posterior al proyecto, o sea que pudimos evaluar el evento de blanqueamiento del 2023, pudimos evaluar impactos de huracanes, evaluar la enfermedad del síndrome blanco, entre otros. Trabajamos con una comunidad que se encuentra al norte de la península, sobre todo en la restauración de manglares, donde logramos restaurar alrededor de 20 hectáreas de manglares y capacitar también a los miembros de la comunidad, tanto en la importancia que tienen los manglares, así como en las técnicas de monitoreo. Con respecto al sargazo marino, que también es un problema que tenemos en los últimos años en el Caribe y sobre todo Guanacavive es uno de los sitios en Cuba que recibe las mayores inundaciones de sargazo, trabajamos en una plataforma de Conavio donde ponemos toda la información, o sea, registramos todos los meses el sargazo que llega a la península. Hemos capacitado a la comunidad en evaluar, en aplicar métodos de monitoreo y también los hemos capacitado en cómo poder utilizar ese sargazo, darle algún uso, aunque todavía no lo estamos haciendo, no lo estamos ejecutando, pero ellos saben el uso que se le puede dar al sargazo como una oportunidad. Este proyecto durante 3 años ha tenido diferentes productos, o sea, hemos realizado diferentes reportes científicos, tenemos una publicación en el Boletín of Marine Science, hemos establecido 4 calendarios de desove para Guanacavives y para Cuba, y bueno, hemos participado en diferentes conferencias, en diferentes espacios, tanto nacionales como internacionales, presentando nuestros resultados. Y también tenemos diferentes páginas de Facebook, de Instagram, páginas web, donde ustedes pueden consultar nuestros resultados. De forma general, a modo de consideraciones finales y futuras perspectivas, tenemos que hemos logrado la resiliencia de los ecosistemas costeros, sobre todo arrecifes y manglares. Hemos involucrado a más personas de las comunidades costeras a la protección y a la conservación de los diferentes ecosistemas. Hemos creado más alianza con instituciones nacionales e internacionales y le hemos mostrado a las comunidades que el sargazo, más que un desafío, puede ser una oportunidad, y también este proyecto ha logrado asentar las bases para el futuro de la conservación de los ecosistemas marinos y costeros en el Parque Nacional Guanacavive. No quería terminar sin antes agradecer a todas las instituciones nacionales e internacionales, así como ONG, y sobre todo a los miembros de las comunidades y científicos cubanos que son los que han logrado todos estos resultados que les he presentado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Dorca, for highlighting how strengthening resilience of both ecosystems and livelihoods through inclusive and active participation of coastal communities for both the Dominican Republic, and Cuba can indeed make a huge difference. We do have about 10 minutes for a Q&A. Thank you, Tanya, for reading my mind. So there's a roving microphone going around in the room. Please, when you ask your questions, if you can state your name, your institutional affiliation, and who you would like to address your question to. So, floor is yours, sir.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Julián Medina, soy pescador artesanal, soy presidente de la Red Nacional de Pesca en Colombia y mi base está en el Golfo de Morrosquillo. Me llama mucho la atención lo que han hablado los compañeros de Cuba porque nosotros también estamos artesanalmente haciendo recuperación de corales. Hemos fracasado en muchas oportunidades. Lo estamos haciendo nosotros como pescadores, sin apoyo de biólogos, sin apoyo financiero, sino que nosotros lo estamos haciendo porque nos interesa hacerlo. También la recuperación de manglares y también tenemos problemas de sargazo. Ese sargazo también llega a nuestras costas, pero lo aprovechamos de una manera que lo enterramos y permite recuperación de playa, porque ampliamos la zona de playa a donde llega el sargazo, si no lo recogemos y lo botamos, sino que lo enterramos en la misma playa y eso permite que la playa se mantenga siempre fuerte y no retrocede, como por ejemplo ahora que hay mar de leva, no retrocede, sino que se mantiene firme la playa. Eso lo hacemos con el sargazo. Por otro lado, me gustaría saber, en la experiencia que ustedes tienen en el tema de recuperación de corales, la medición de la temperatura, que es la que permite el blanqueamiento de ellos y que nosotros lo estamos sufriendo bastante, ¿se mantiene siempre en las guarderías o lo hacen en una zona diferente a donde se encuentran los arrecifes para que se puedan transportar vivos hasta ese sector? Porque hemos visto que nosotros lo hacemos donde está la misma zona del arrecife, pero el agua, como es muy caliente, no permite una supervivencia superior al 30%.
Bueno, muy interesante su pregunta. Primero lo que le... Sí. Bueno, muy interesante su pregunta. Mi primera sugerencia sería que buscara apoyo de biólogos científicos que les puedan explicar todos los procesos sobre la restauración de los corales. Y lo otro importante, cuando va a ubicar un vivero de coral, tiene que tener en cuenta dónde viven estas especies, a las profundidades que viven, porque hay especies que forman las crestas arrecifales, como la Acropora palmata, que están más expuestas a la temperatura, están en zonas someras, pero si trabaja con otras especies como Acropora cerviconi, llevan otra profundidad. En muchos sitios se encuentran entre los 15, entre 10 o los 20 metros. Entonces los viveros se ubican en dependencia de la ecología, la biología y ecología de estas especies. En el caso de nosotros en Guanacavive tenemos el vivero de coral a 10 metros, donde cultivamos fragmentos de Acropora cerviconi. Por lo rápido de la presentación no puedo decir las especies que trabajamos, pero se mostraron en la diapo. Tenemos un vivero a 10 metros de profundidad donde trabajamos con Acropora cerviconi y hasta ahora nos ha funcionado muy bien. La otra opción es tener sensores de temperatura, o sea, jobo que usted puede colocar en su vivero y puede monitorear la temperatura tanto en el vivero como en los sitios naturales, y esto le puede decir si está su vivero en temperaturas adecuadas o condiciones adecuadas. Igual depende, hay especies que necesitan más dinámica, como es el caso de la palmata, que está más adaptada al oleaje. Sin embargo, hay otras especies que no están adaptadas al oleaje, como el cerviconi o aquellas especies masivas. En el vivero de nosotros también contamos, o sea, también hacemos trabajos de microfragmentación, trabajamos con Orbicella faviolata y Diploria labertiforme, que son corales masivos, y también han sido muy, o sea, han tenido mucho éxito estas especies en nuestro vivero a una profundidad de 10 metros, pero también depende de las condiciones tanto ambientales, ecológicas que tenga usted en su zona. La supervivencia en nuestro vivero ha sido más del 80% para todas las especies que hemos trabajado.
Muy buenos días. Muchas gracias al panel por la exposición de sus proyectos. Mi pregunta va dirigida a los proyectos que tienen en cuenta varios ecosistemas, por ejemplo, corales, pastos marinos y manglares. Desde el punto de vista de mi investigación, yo estudio el carbono azul, mucho gusto, Juan Pablo Caicedo del INVEMAR, y hay como una separación entre los que estudian los manglares, los que estudian los pastos, los que estudian los corales. Mi pregunta es cómo lograr que haya como una conexión entre los diferentes grupos de investigación para llevar a cabo restauración en los tres tipos diferentes de ecosistemas que son pues catalogados como carbono azul. En el caso pues de Colombia están los pastos marinos y los manglares. Y siento que es un reto la conservación y la restauración de estos ecosistemas desde puntos de vista diferenciales. Obviamente son ecosistemas diferentes, pero siento que debe haber una línea en común. Entonces la pregunta es esa, ¿cuál es la estrategia para romper esas diferencias y romper esas líneas imaginarias, digo yo, para que haya mejor financiamiento para la restauración? Muchas gracias.
Bueno, en el caso de Cuba, realmente trabajamos de conjunto, muchos especialistas, o sea, los biólogos marinos, y realmente trabajamos casi todos los ecosistemas. Y las personas que están en las áreas protegidas son responsables aún más de trabajar en los tres sitios, o sea, manglar, pasto y arrecife. Realmente un poco complicado, ¿no? Quizás en otros países porque cada aspecto tiene su ecosistema o se dedica específicamente a una especie, pero la experiencia de nosotros es que tratar de buscar estrategias, ¿no? De involucrar a todos los científicos en función de los ecosistemas y más si es en aquellas áreas protegidas que tienen los tres, porque además estos tres ecosistemas están conectados y realmente habría que proteger los tres, investigar o restaurar los tres ecosistemas. No sé si respondo. Es un reto muy grande realmente. Entonces en Cuba también en los últimos años tenemos pocos especialistas y biólogos marinos, entonces todos colaboramos unos con otros y tenemos muchas alianzas entre todas las instituciones científicas que se dedican a las ciencias del mar. Entonces muchos trabajamos arrecifes, manglares, pastos o nos colaboramos.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, and I saw that Johnny had his hand up before. And then, of course, there's always an opportunity to engage with the panelists after the session. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm John Borges from the Blue Economy Solutions Lab, and this question is for Eduardo. That was a really interesting pilot case for the Bahamas. It's a really interesting, multifaceted approach here. And I'm curious to know a little bit more about the potential, as a pilot project, the potential plans for scaling this type of work for the small scale fleet energy transitions, other places in the Caribbean you're looking to potentially work in, how to go about that, particularly interested from a financing perspective. What kinds of financial resources? Is it mostly grant supported right now? Are you looking to engage financial institutions for scaling that? And also, is there any vision for looking beyond small scale fleets at larger scale shipping fleets to kind of facilitate this energy transition in the region? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are very important questions and some of the questions we're trying to address. So we started working in the Bahamas for one, as I mentioned before, we had trust. We already have established some good relationships there. So that has been helpful to choose the Bahamas for that reason. And also the isolation, we're working in the family islands, which are very isolated. So that's the need for this type of approach is more relevant. In terms of the financing, yes. So answering your question, scaling up, that's our goal. We want to use the Bahamas as the case study. The financial bridge, it's one of the most challenging. We have a lot of studies that show that economically wise, it makes sense in the long term, but the short term investment is high. And even though after 2.5 years, you still see your return, what do you do with those 2.5 years? So that's where we're trying to find a combination where we can include blue carbon credits, we can include the private sector. So we're really here, I think Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and other organizations are trying to answer those questions. And so we really look forward to continuing these conversations and understand what are the different options to make that possible. In terms of the technical aspects that overlap with the financial aspect, we're looking to a solution that we call fleet in a box. But this fleet in a box that's what it is. It's a box. It's a container that has solar panels, and that allows you to have this modular approach where you can move around these electric boats pilots and try them in different communities and different contexts. So that helps absorb some of the financial costs. So you're using the same equipment to try in different contexts. So that's not the only solution. I think that's one of the things that's one of the approaches that we're trying to implement using this fleet in a box approach, because we, as I mentioned before, some of the challenges is the trust of this technology. Fishermen and people on the boats are really reluctant. Like, is this boat going to actually work? And I'm going to be just in the middle of nowhere with no energy. So those are the type of challenges that we're hoping that this mix of financial and technology approaches can help us get there. So yeah, we were actually in this conversation yesterday about like what are the mechanisms to kind of fund this type of project. So we're really in that process. Some other places where we're looking to implement this approach is Puerto Rico and Environmental Defense Fund. We also have a program in Indonesia. So we're also having conversations to implement these type of approaches in other continents. So happy to continue this conversation with people interested in here, like from the financial aspect, from the technical aspect, so yeah, it's still a work in progress. Thanks so much for your question.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Thank you to all of the panelists, and please give them a warm round of applause as we invite them to exit the stage, with the exception of Lalo. So now we head into the second part of the session for this morning, which will be talking specifically about field level interventions, using examples that connect research, finance, and practice to strengthen marine conservation and management. These interventions highlight ongoing restoration and science-based efforts to improve our understanding of ecosystem resilience and informing design of effective marine protected areas. These sessions will also reflect how collaboration among scientists, conservation practitioners, and financing institutions can deliver tangible results aligned with the global biodiversity framework and the 30 by 30 targets. In terms of speakers, we have an intervention by Fabian Pina Amargos, who is a marine scientist and environmental advisor with Avalon. He is a Pew Marine Fellow and awardee of the Cuban Academy of Sciences and has authored more than 60 scientific publications on Caribbean marine ecosystems. He's unable to join us here today, but we do have a recorded intervention from Fabian, and Eduardo will be introducing him. Then we will have an intervention by Nicasio Viña Davila, who is the Technical Director of the Caribbean Biological Corridor, CBC, under the UN Environment Program. He's a Cuban biogeographer with a PhD from the Institute of Tropical Geography. He has more than 3 decades of experience in biodiversity research, conservation planning, and regional environmental cooperation. His work focuses on advancing transboundary collaboration for ecosystem connectivity and climate resilience across the region. And then my colleague, Fabian Kine, who is a project lead at the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, where he implements the MPACT project to strengthen the effective marine protected area management and enabling sustainable financing for MPA management across the Caribbean. His work connects regional policy frameworks with practical conservation outcomes that advance the 30 by 30 goals under the global biodiversity framework. So a warm round of applause, I'm stumbling, as we invite our speakers onto the stage. Applause. You're allowed. So as we load the video from Fabienne, I invite Eduardo to give an introduction to him. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I just want to mention, like as Tatio mentioned, Dr. Fabian Pina was not able to make it here, but he sends his regards. So we're going to have a presentation that he recorded. If anyone has any questions, I'll be able to take some of the questions for Fabian. So please take note if there's something that is interesting for you from this video. Dorca and I, we can respond some of these questions, as well as Omar. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And Fabian, if you're seeing us, we miss you, as long as Tamara, who was not able to be here with us. So can we start, please, with the video now?
Environmental Defense Fund, Wildlife Conservation Society y Caribbean Biodiversity Fund por invitarnos a presentar en este simposio y panel especial. Lamento no poder acompañar en persona, pero gracias al empeño de todos y los organizadores de tecnología, me siento en la ustedes. El gobierno a Cuba, el equipo de la ciencia, Amara y yo estábamos enfrascados en la elaboración de varios capítulos para el volumen 18 Coral Reef of Cuba de la serie Coral Reef of the World. Editado por el junto a una treintena de colegas, agregamos información ecológica, oceanográfica y socioeconómica de casi 400 sitios de arrecifes de coral alrededor de Cuba, ascendiendo a casi 40.000 datos entre los años 1980 y 2010. Los resultados, sin duda valiosos, están limitados por la heterogeneidad de los métodos observadores, hábitats y el cambio espacial y temporal. Se nos hizo evidente la necesidad de un muestreo canalizado y actuar a escala del país. Al término de la COVID, presentamos la idea al gobernador de un barrio de turismo que operaba en el Jardín de la Reina, que la apoyó de inmediato, y comenzamos a armar un equipo de coordinación y de colegas dispuestos a hacer realidad algo que parecía un sueño. El gobierno de Cuba, a partir de casi 500 kilómetros al este de La Habana, va a ser el barco a mediados de julio de 2023 y terminó en ese mismo sitio a inicios de septiembre. El gobierno de Cuba ya cuenta con 5 publicaciones aprobadas que formarán parte de un número especial del Quality of Marine Science, que contará con otros 5 que se encuentran en fase de preparación. Los países cuentan con 2 publicaciones, una general que es presentada en este simposio y otra sobre diversidad funcional. También ya están aprobadas las variables marinas, megafauna y factores humanos que inciden en la diversidad biológica. Pero nada de esto ha podido ser posible sin un sistema de sostenibilidad financiera que queremos compartir dentro de esta sesión. Primero, la manera más eficaz y eficiente de estudiar casi 70 estudios alrededor de 7 semanas en el mar es usando un barco de vida. Algo similar, accediendo desde tierra, hubiera sido incosteable y logísticamente poco menos que imposible. Ahora hizo disponible el barco y contribuyó sustancialmente al proyecto. Como el principal medio aceptado, el siguiente paso fue emprender la búsqueda de financiamiento necesario para llevar a cabo los objetivos científicos y divulgativos del museo. El Biodiversity Defense Fund gestionó el grueso de las divisas necesarias y contribuyó con sus científicos y comunicadores al éxito del proyecto. El Biodiversity Defense Fund también hace posible las publicaciones con la participación de sus científicos y financiados. El Centro de Investigación Marina de la Universidad de La Habana, además del aporte científico, jugó un papel clave en el complemento financiero nacional que asegurar los permisos necesarios. Naturaleza Secreta realizó una labor educativa titánica, primando y dedicando no solo en la parte marina, sino también en las comunidades costeras y principales ciudades de toda Cuba. Con casi 50 materiales divulgativos, Naturaleza Secreta puso al pueblo cubano de cara al mundo. 2 años después de la expedición, los documentales siguen dedicando a los televidentes de todo el país. La labor divulgativa del Museo Cuba ha tenido su espacio en las 3 primeras ediciones del Festival Internacional de Cine y Medio Ambiente del Caribe y Sahara. Wildlife Conservation Society contribuyeron con equipamiento y más de una veintena de instituciones cubanas y extranjeras contribuyeron con científicos, comunicadores, recursos materiales y financieros, tramitación de permisos y otros aspectos imprescindibles para llevar a cabo el proyecto. Como parte del proyecto a Cuba, se entrenaron alrededor de una decena de jóvenes científicos. Ahora estamos enfocados en culminar las publicaciones científicas que sustentan las recomendaciones de manejo a escala del país. Si el gobierno de Cuba ha representado el trabajo de muchas personas en instituciones de Cuba y más allá en los últimos años, la conservación de jardines de la reina es un esfuerzo similar por casi un tercio del siglo, como parte de un modelo de sostenibilidad, incluyendo la financiera, que merece ser compartido y replicado. La conservación de jardines de la reina se basa en un modelo de pesquería. El turismo encontró la oportunidad dentro de la ley de pesca de 1994 para lograr proteger este archipiélago como una reserva marina, solo donde se permitía la pesca comercial de langosta y el turismo de pesca recreativa de captura y liberación en aguas someras, además del buceo autónomo y libre. La protección alcanzó una nueva dimensión en 2010 cuando el Jardín de la Reina fue declarado Parque Nacional bajo la Ley de Medio Ambiente de 1998. La abundancia de peces grandes, tiburones, rayas y tortugas marinas que se observan en el parque dan fe de los resultados de la protección efectiva. Sobre la base del poder empresarial del turismo, se ha articulado un mecanismo de colaboración de disímiles actores, administración del parque, pescadores, visitantes, diversas instituciones encargadas de explicar las regulaciones pesqueras y ambientales. Todos basados en la ciencia que el mismo modelo empresarial apoya mediante la realización de expediciones y formación de jóvenes científicos y gestores. Además de los beneficios que reciben los que participan directamente en este modelo, es también relevante el derrame hacia las comunidades costeras y el país. La pieza clave del éxito de este modelo empresarial y coordinación de inspectores es el patrullaje diario que se realiza en todo el parque. Los inspectores son proporcionados por la administración del parque en la inspección pesquera y logística, alojamiento, alimentación, lancha, combustible, lanchero, el turismo. Esta intensidad de patrullaje hace que las incursiones de pesca y caza ilegales sean extremadamente raras y casi siempre detectadas por la consiguiente aplicación de la legislación vigente. A partir de todo lo explicado en esta presentación, puedo decir que el Cuba y la Reina en su caso que han articulado mecanismos financieros y de colaboración entre actores en bien de la ciencia, la promoción de la actual generación, la protección y la conservación de Cuba y con potencialidad de ser replicados en otros lugares del ámbito nacional y más allá.
Thank you so much, Fabian. Warm round of applause. And also thank you to Eduardo for the introduction. And it's really interesting to see how sustainable financing for marine protected areas, including one that should be firmly on everyone's bucket list. Next, I invite Fabian Kine to come up to the lectern to provide his intervention. Oh, sorry. Next, I would like to invite Nicasio up to the lectern to provide his intervention. Thank you.
Buenos días. Voy a hablar en español y me voy a tomar un minuto mío para recalcar que por segunda vez en mi vida voy a dar una conferencia después que un huracán de gran intensidad ataca, destruye gran parte del corredor y de mi propia ciudad. Hace 12 años lo hizo Sandy. Ayer Melissa cruzó sobre Jamaica y hace unos minutos salió del oriente cubano. Solo en Cuba, más de 31 áreas protegidas han sido afectadas por vientos huracanados, más de 50 especies amenazadas en lista roja de UICN de animales y cientos de especies de plantas estuvieron sometidas a este feroz huracán. No voy a hablar de las personas, pero los daños son extraordinariamente considerables. Dicho esto, les voy a transmitir en 5 minutos qué es el corredor biológico del Caribe y qué estamos haciendo en pos de la conservación entre las Antillas Mayores. El corredor biológico del Caribe, está ahí la definición, los objetos de conservación a nivel de especie, los objetos de conservación a nivel de ecosistema, y voy a destacar solamente que trata de lograr la conservación efectiva de los ecosistemas terrestres y marinos de importancia regional. Eso suena a Meta 3, sin embargo fue elaborado antes que la Meta 3 y también en sitios priorizados y considerando los cambios climáticos y considerando las personas que viven en este espacio. El corredor empezó en el 2007, en el 27 cumpliremos 20 años de trabajo. No se fijen, esos son los hitos importantes desde el punto de vista político, pero los puntos rojos son terremotos, epidemias, pandemias, huracanes, 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 huracanes. Eso es la realidad de las Antillas Mayores, la realidad de las Antillas en general, del Caribe. ¿Cuál es nuestro mecanismo de gobernanza? Bueno, un comité ministerial, un comité científico-técnico y un secretariado del CBC que, ayudado por mecanismos nacionales establecidos, puntos focales y socios a nivel nacional, trabajan en función de lograr el cumplimiento de esta estrategia del 2030. Estrategia aprobada en comité técnico, en comité ministerial, en el QR la pueden encontrar en su versión en inglés y que está alineada lógicamente con Meta 3 y con las estrategias internacionales. Tiene un conjunto de ejes y de prioridades con un total de 100 actividades priorizadas a nivel de los ministerios de los países para su ejecución a nivel regional. ¿Cómo se implementa esa estrategia? Bueno, proyectos que desarrolla la Secretaría, proyectos asociados, como varios de los que antecedieron estuvieron presentando proyectos que contribuyen a esa estrategia. Y por último, proyectos independientes, que no son coordinados, pero que dan respuesta a la estrategia, a las prioridades definidas. Yo podría decir casi absolutamente que todos los proyectos que desarrolla el CBF en las Antillas Mayores están contribuyendo directamente a esa estrategia que fueron aprobadas por los países. Ahora, si vamos al 30-30, el Caribe insular, tuvimos que cambiar la visión. Cambiar la visión de islas con costa y algunas áreas protegidas y cerquitas a que el mar es 6 veces más que la tierra. Y esas son las áreas protegidas que hay en este momento. Ya ahí hay la contribución de República Dominicana al 30x30, pero si ustedes se dan cuenta y vemos la siguiente diapositiva, todavía el mar queda bastante desprotegido. Y si vamos al cumplimiento de la Meta 3, estaríamos viendo que a nivel terrestre la protección de lo más significativo de la biodiversidad terrestre está cumplida. ¿Dónde está el reto en costa y tierra? Está en la efectividad del manejo. ¿Dónde está el reto de crecimiento desde nuestro punto de vista? Está en el mar. ¿Por qué? Porque hay grandes áreas del mar que todavía no tienen conservación. Y los 3 retos van porque no sabemos dónde conservar, porque no sabemos cómo manejar esas áreas distantes de la costa, porque hay insuficiente capacidad técnica, hay vacío de capacidad técnica y por último, lógicamente, porque se necesitan los fondos para hacer todo esto. ¿Qué necesitamos de frente al 30x30? Estabilizar una sólida cooperación regional que facilite los recursos, el uso de los recursos utilizados, existentes, consolidar una visión regional, no basta con la visión de los países independientemente, y estabilizar y expandir una cooperación. Para eso estamos trabajando en un plan de acción complementario a nuestro plan estratégico al 2030, dirigido solamente al 2030, es dirigido solamente a cumplir con la Meta 3 de 30 en el 30. Y hemos trabajado en un primer documento que será aprobado o sometido a aprobación en el Comité Técnico en febrero y en el Comité Ministerial en abril. Hemos trabajado en paralelo en una planificación espacial de la región para saber dónde y cómo tenemos que proteger y qué tenemos que proteger, creando una planificación espacial y usando al mismo tiempo aquellas que se están desarrollando por algunos socios. Y hemos trabajado en un polígono de prueba para poder analizar dónde proteger con vacíos de conocimiento, pero con inferencia segura, y cómo poder establecer medidas de conservación y de manejo. Pero eso no es todo, me quedan 14 segundos. Hasta ahí es lo que hemos estado haciendo, pero esto es el reto, porque no basta pensar dentro del espacio CBC, tenemos que también pensar la conectividad y la conservación fuera del espacio CBC. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Nicasio, for your intervention and also for highlighting how external shocks such as weather events can have on our ecosystems and livelihoods. And indeed, our thoughts are with all of the communities that have been impacted and will be impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Next, I would like to invite to the lectern Fabian Kine, who will give his intervention. Fabian, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to participate in this enriching dialogue and where we look towards local and regional solutions for bridging the gap between 30 by 30 and how we can all support it. So I just wanted to start by telling you a little bit about some of the work that we're doing at the CBF, the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, where I work as the technical officer to support a regional MPA project in the Caribbean. So the effective MPA activities for the Caribbean project, MPAC, it's a long project name, but essentially the goal is to support 30 by 30 by catalyzing MPA support in areas such as designation, implementation, expansion to advance local and regional actions. And we're doing that across three key levers. The first is to advance policy engagement and advocacy. The second looks to scale sustainable financing across the region. And the third is to work collectively with the existing networks and actors that we have in the Caribbean to formalize and support and strengthen regional action. So one of the things that we've been working on is we wanted to first better understand what's holding up progress for marine management in the Caribbean, and with a focus on the social barriers. So we looked at policy, institutional, and financing gaps and constraints, and conducted an MPA gap analysis. And this work combined desktop research, financial benchmarking and modeling, key informant interviews, surveys and workshops across 150 different stakeholders around the Caribbean. And this was implemented by ESL Solutions, which is based currently in Jamaica. So we looked at 8 countries that were representative from the region and conducted a weighted cumulative score to assess the key enabling conditions and legal frameworks, MPA coverage, institutional capacity, and the level of dependence that these countries had on marine resources. So the 8 countries that we focused on included the Bahamas, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. And collectively, this looked at 127 marine protected areas or marine managed areas with over 175,000 square kilometers, which showed us that we went from, which supports about 11.5% coverage within the Caribbean, which is much higher than the global average. One of the things that we're seeing is that a number of countries are making great strides towards 30 by 30. So including the Dominican Republic that recently reached the target, Belize, Antigua and Barbuda. But several other countries lag behind, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And we still need 143,000 kilometers to reach 30 by 30 as a region in the Caribbean. So one of the things that we found from the study was that there's a number of functional gaps impacting effective MPA management. And I think a lot of these are not unfamiliar to many of you in the room. You know, we know that MPAs, the term paper parks has been around for the last 2 decades in the Caribbean, and limited staff, vessels, equipment are really impacting effective management. We're also seeing low community participation, weak monitoring and data systems, limited cross-border collaboration, although we're seeing, you know, fantastic examples, but it's not fully embraced. And this is important when you're dealing with a connected ocean and shared ecosystems, and particularly when you're working with migratory species. We also see some poor integration of MPAs in other frameworks like blue economy, climate strategies. So this is really slowing down our ability to be impactful. Some of the financial barriers that we found from the assessment, and again, I'm sure many of these are not surprising, but there's a heavy dependence on donor projects and short-term grants. Management effectiveness is limited by these financial and institutional barriers. Few MPAs are able to retain revenues or access sustainable financing, and there's a need for diversified mechanisms such as user fees, tourism levies, payment for ecosystem services, and of course, debt for nature swaps and blue bonds. And we often have weak enabling frameworks to support these systems and to really make sure that they're properly implemented at scale. So looking at the numbers, we found that across the 8 focus countries, there's an annual financing need of 642 million, but only a current spend or fundraising of 66 million. So we're seeing this, there's an annual funding gap of 576 million. And what I found staggering is that this doesn't actually include operational costs. So this is just the financing needs for MPAs to be established and yeah. But we're also seeing a number of examples of strength and promise in the Caribbean. And I think it's important, you know, when we're looking at gaps to make sure we acknowledge that. And some of these include the Bahamas, which has just recently negotiated a $300 million debt for nature swap to expand protected areas. Jamaica, that has a very successful co-management model, working with a number of different communities, such as the Rockabessa, Bluefields, East Portland. Antigua and Barbuda, that has a very diversified, innovative, sustainable tourism model in Nelson's dockyard. And Grenada, that has recently integrated marine protected areas into their blue economy roadmap and broader framework. So some of the regional recommendations that we saw from the study include making sure that governance is inclusive. So aligning legal and policy frameworks and reporting, strengthen co-management, equity and community benefits, financial innovation. So we've been talking about this at length, I think, this week, but ensuring that MPA authorities retain and manage revenues with clear oversight, and that management plans include climate smart, multi-year investment pipelines. Regional collaboration and capacity can't be understated, and it's important to strengthen these networks through MOUs, partnerships, sanctions, surveillance, and expand the South-South learning and capacity building across the region. In parallel, we've also been working at the advocacy level, So in parallel, we've also been working at the advocacy level to advance political engagement, where we developed a Caribbean-led, or we've been supporting a Caribbean-led declaration for collective action that builds on the ambition of the Caribbean Challenge Initiative, which expanded and formalized nearshore protection in over 8 countries. And we just had this endorsed through the OECS comms process earlier this year and launched at the UN Oceans Conference alongside 14 Caribbean countries and partners. And it really speaks towards a harmonized approach. So working collectively on this issue of 30 by 30 to meet the GBF and also link biodiversity funding focus. The other point I wanted to make is that the work isn't going to stop here. We are keen as part of the CBF to leverage the existing architecture and partnerships that we have in the region. So we're already working with 12 countries across the region, across 3 different programs, and we've dispersed over $40 million in biodiversity funding. And what we're currently doing is establishing fundraising strategies, including a dedicated fund for marine conservation and management, which the design is still in the works, but we plan to launch early next year. So I just want to say thank you so much to our partners, to our collaborators that have been part of this work and have contributed to the report. And you can scan the QR codes for more information on the project, to download the declaration. And if you'd like the report, which is a 350-page report, I'm happy to share that and take any questions. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Fabian. And I can personally attest to the hard work that Fabian, Tanya, and the wider CBF team has been putting into ensuring that MPA practitioners and governments have the means necessary to have effective conservation of the marine spaces. So thank you so much. We do have 7 minutes, I see, on the timer for brief Q&A. Oh, that's from the last presentation. So I'm going to ask the technical team if you can put up 10 minutes. That's okay, 7 minutes? Okay, we're a little bit behind. Okay, all right. So we do have 7 minutes for a Q&A. So again, as a reminder, raise your hand, introduce yourselves, your affiliation, and who you're directing your question to. And then I still think there's a roaming mic somewhere. So Johnny, you got the first question.
Thank you. Johnny Kelly's Grenada Sustainable Development Trust Fund. I just wanted a little explanation on the sinking fund. Probably explain how you plan for it to work and be implemented. Thank you.
And I do think that perhaps Tanya would be the best position to.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to give it to Fabian. So you heard a lot about endowment funds, right? So the endowment fund is where you have a big amount of money and the interest is being generated because an endowment fund is being invested. What we call sinking funds is actually like a project funding. For me, that is the easiest way to explain. So if when for example, in the case of CBF, we would have received from Germany, the German corporation, for the circular economy facility, we would have received, let's say, $20 million. We do call for proposals, and the money is then being committed and being dispersed. So basically, our circular economy facility, that is what we would call a sinking fund. So when it's done, it's done. Basically like a project. So that's the easiest way to explain a sinking fund. Thanks.
But hello, yeah. But just to add, we're currently working on a dedicated fund for marine conservation. So we've been having a number of conversations about what that mechanism could look like, how it could be meaningful, how we can best channel the funding to those that need it, particularly the implementers on the ground. So we've had a lot of conversations about how we can work at either site level or through through government partnerships with the conservation trust funds. The design's still being formalized. We had a workshop earlier this week to really discuss this and get into the details of what would really make sense for the Caribbean, what would be meaningful, how we've still got to capitalize the fund. So we're doing a lot of work in terms of fundraising to make sure that we can put the resources and support this work. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. Any other questions in the room? Comments? Critiques? You can direct to Lalo. Nothing, going once, going twice. If not, thank you very much. Another very warm round of applause for our panelists. And we will now move into the next session, which will be moderated by Tanya. Tanya, floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. We know it's a long session and people are coming in and out, which is fine. So for the next one, can we put it up on the slide? We have 4 presenters or panelists. We have Paula Lewis from the Global Islands Partnership, GLISPA. So Paula, please come ahead. Dane Budu from the Blue Economy, CLMA Plus, and he will tell us more what that means, project with the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism. Thank you so much, Dane. We have Susana Pereira from UNEP Cartagena Convention. Thank you, Susana. And then we have Diana Joseph from the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund, SLUNCF. So thank you so much, Diana. So I think this panel, we spoke a lot about marine protected areas, conservation actions, global biodiversity framework, the 30 by 30. And I think in this, I would say panel, we want to go a little bit more into how. So we saw the science, we saw the great work that Cuba, the research institutes are doing, but across the region, right? All the research that is being done, the piloting. But we want to go a little bit more into networks, into finance. How do we reach these goals and how do we reach the conservation and the resilience that we need of the coral reefs, the mangroves, and other ecosystems? So I'm not going to read out all the bios again. I want to go one by one and we'll just go in the order that they're actually, I hope we're going to see in which order because that's going to be interesting. If we have, oh no, we don't have any slides, or we do have slides. I think Dane had slides, right? So Paula, you had slides? No, all right, great. So let's start with the people who don't have slides. That's easiest. So we're going to be very flexible in this panel, as you can see. So I want to give maybe not even 7, so we have more time maybe for the questions and answer. Maybe in 5 minutes, Paula, what is the work that GLISPA is doing to achieve the 30 by 30 and the global biodiversity framework? So over to Paula for a short introduction also again for people who don't know Paula. Please go ahead. Thank you. Oh, the mic. There's a mic there. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Tanya. Is everybody hearing me?
Yep.
It's a pleasure to join this panel representing the Global Island Partnership, GLISPA. GLISPA is recognized as a mechanism for the implementation of the program of work on biodiversity. And as a result of that, we work with regional trust funds like the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and community partners across the world to strengthen island leadership and unlock sustainable financing for biodiversity and resilience. Today's conversation on scaling up finance is central to what we do, because while often islands are at the front lines of climate impacts and biodiversity loss, they are often on the sidelines of large-scale financing flows. We know that achieving the GBF, particularly the 30 by 30 target, requires billions in new investments, but financing alone is not enough. The real challenge is how funds flow, whether they reach local institutions, build capacity, and create lasting systems beyond project cycles. That's why we see regional trust funds like CBF as critical anchors in a larger island finance ecosystem. GLISPA serves as a connector in this ecosystem. We recently launched a CIS Conservation Trust Fund Community of Practice, where we facilitate dialogue among CTFs, share peer learning on governance and efficiency, and identify pathways for scaling financing models that work in small island contexts. We've also launched the Island Biodiversity Coalition, which brings together over 40 island partners and institutions to coordinate advocacy around biodiversity, financing, and the implementation of the GBF. Our goal is to ensure that when global frameworks and donors speak of scaling up, they include the mechanisms that are already in islands and the people who have been sustaining conservation for decades. But what does scaling up really mean? For us, scaling up doesn't just mean larger budgets. It means deeper ecosystems. It means blended finance that combines grants, debt relief, and private capital. Blue bonds and community endowments that reinvest into local conservation. Policy alignment that embeds conservation finance into national development plans. And these are the kinds of innovations that can make financing both scalable and sustainable. To truly finance the future of Caribbean biodiversity, we need collaborative architecture where regional trust funds, governments, donors, and communities each play a part. We must shift from project dependency to ecosystem investment, from short-term goals to long-term partnership. And above all, we must ensure that the people who protect our biodiversity every day, those on the coastlines, in the wetlands, and the reefs, are not just implementers of finance, but beneficiaries and the stewards of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Paula, and the great work indeed of the Global Islands Partnership. Again, we spoke a lot about networking and coordinating this whole week. And truly, GLISPA has been, bringing us together, not only from the Caribbean, but from all over, from the Pacific and all the other islands. So I'll go next to Susana. Susana, so please introduce yourself and tell us how UNEP Cartagena Convention is working towards that global biodiversity framework. Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias, Tania. Y para balancear un poco el panel de English Speakers Colleagues, voy a hablar en español. Yo soy Susana Pereira Valderrama y trabajo en el PENUMA, en la Secretaría del Convenio de Cartagena en Kingston, Jamaica, y mis sentimientos se alinean ahora mismo con el comentario de Nicasio y mis colegas allá en Jamaica. Por suerte, pues no tuvimos mayores afectaciones en Kingston, y aquí también está Dale, también de Jamaica. Pero bueno, entonces espero que algunos de ustedes hayan estado ayer durante la presentación que realicé y el trabajo que realizamos en la Secretaría de Convenio de Cartagena, y en particular el protocolo SPO de áreas y especies especialmente protegidas. Pero como imaginarán, como lo dice su nombre, el protocolo SPO está completamente alineado con las metas del marco global de biodiversidad, en particular con la meta 30x30. Entonces, el protocolo en sí trabaja directamente para apoyar a los países de la región del Gran Caribe, tanto los que son parte del protocolo como los que alguna vez lo serán, en crear nuevas áreas marinas protegidas, extender existentes y, por supuesto, manejar de manera efectiva las que ya existen. Y también estamos moviendo nuestros esfuerzos para apoyar en la creación de otras medidas efectivas de conservación basadas en áreas conocidas en español como OMEC o ICIENS en inglés. Entonces, con respecto a los mecanismos financieros que utilizamos en la Secretaría, en 1989, después de la primera conferencia de las partes del Convenio de Cartagena, se crea el Fondo Fiduciario del Caribe. Es un fondo al que deben contribuir todos los países de la región que forman parte del Programa Ambiental del Caribe, en total 28, todos los existentes, empezando desde Estados Unidos hasta Francia, en Guyana Francesa, ¿no? Todos los que están en el continente y las islas del Caribe. Sin embargo, pues como sabemos, nuestra región es política y económicamente diversa y por supuesto biológicamente, pero en particular en lo referente a sistemas políticos y económicos, situaciones diferentes, pues muchos países experimentan grandes desafíos para contribuir al Fondo Fiduciario del Caribe, el Caribbean Trust Fund. Entonces, pues tradicionalmente la Secretaría ha buscado variantes para atender esta, digamos, falta de fondos para trabajar. Las contribuciones que recibimos al Fondo Fiduciario del Caribe son utilizadas fundamentalmente para apoyar el personal de la Secretaría y pues las operaciones básicas, pero pues durante los años nos hemos enfrascado en buscar financiamiento fundamentalmente a través de proyectos internacionales. Hemos operado, implementado proyectos completos y además participamos en proyectos con otras agencias y en este momento quisiera resaltar, por ejemplo, el proyecto ACP-MEA3 financiado por la Unión Europea, el proyecto ProCaribe Más que también pues está generosamente apoyando este evento, el proyecto que es del Gran Ecosistema Marino del Golfo de México, que ha permitido que varios colegas de los países involucrados participen aquí en este evento. Adicionalmente, pues los países también, nuestros países parte, preocupados por esta situación financiera, nos pidieron que desarrolláramos una estrategia de movilización de recursos y de financiamiento sostenible. Y pues me complace comentarles que esta fue adoptada en la conferencia de las partes hace 2 semanas, que fue desarrollada en Kingston, en Jamaica. Y entonces, pues a partir de aquí tenemos tarea para continuar trabajando en este sentido. Ya se ha comentado el gran reto que consiste en pasar de una dependencia de proyectos a un mecanismo financiero. Y en este sentido quisiera resaltar la relevancia de las alianzas estratégicas. Entonces, pues la Secretaría está completamente a disposición y lo realiza actualmente de continuar intercambiando con todas las instituciones, en particular todos los mecanismos que el Caribbean Biodiversity Fund ha estado presentando y comentando en este panel, en particular la MPA Facility, etcétera. Entonces, sí, por supuesto, nos sumamos a todos los esfuerzos regionales para construir una economía azul sostenible y, por supuesto, pues abordar las metas del marco global de biodiversidad, en particular la de 30x30. Gracias.
Super, mil gracias, Susana. Entonces, all right, we have, I think, Dane's presentation. A ver, no. Oh, hay que cambiar. Oh, sorry. But Dane, yes, you're next. If you want, you can take it here or there. Okay, perfect. Dane will. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dane. Okay.
Speaker was positioned, please. Morning, everyone. My name is Dane Buddha. I'm the Regional Project Coordinator for the Blue Economy Project, run by the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism. This is a project that's been implemented in 6 countries: Belize, Panama, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Barbados, and Guyana. It's a project that's co-implemented by the Development Bank of Latin America and Caribbean, CAF, the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and being executed by the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism. It's a project that's funded by the GEF to the tune of $6.2 million, with co-financing of $41 million, with $25 million of that going in a line of credit from the CAF. The objective is to promote blue economy development in the CLME Plus region through marine spatial planning and marine protected areas, ecosystem approach to fisheries, and sustainable seafood value chains. The project is separated into 3 components. The first component is implementing cross-sectoral marine spatial planning And one of the things I want to highlight about this is the regional approach that we have to take with marine spatial planning. You know, the fish don't know where we drew those geopolitical boundaries. So we can't think nationally when we're talking about fisheries management. We have to think regionally. So this regional approach, yes, guided by national marine spatial plans, but always we have to think about a regional look in terms of marine spatial planning. You know, the previous session focused a lot on expanding and strengthening marine protected areas. And one of the things that we have to remember, and you know, just seeing what has happened in my country yesterday, one of the most devastating days in our history, the nature-based solutions also took a huge hit. Where's the insurance framework for that one? How do they recover? Do they start writing a grant again to build back their coral nurseries and to build back mangrove areas? Where is that kind of, you know, strengthening that needs to come from it? Under this project, we focus on blue economy strategies and financing. How can we really ramp up the look on the blue economy? Yes, we've been looking at, you know, getting economies from the marine space for many, many years, all across our countries. But how do we really sustain that? How do we tap into the areas beyond that 1 mile radius around our coastal areas? How do we get into the deeper areas? Not just fisheries, but other aspects as well, but doing it in a sustainable way. Developing new and existing ventures, for example, mariculture. We've seen small pilot mariculture projects in many of our islands. How do we scale this up? And this is where the investment, especially from private sector entities, have to play a role in this. On a component 2, we look at inclusive, sustainable fisheries value chains. How do we improve these seafood value chains? How do we maximize what we're getting in terms of the revenue, not necessarily maximize how much we're taking from the marine environment? These are all, you know, of course, many of us have overfished stocks. We have to pay more attention to that, not just measuring how much fish we're catching, but how much money we're making from the little fish that we have to catch as well. So we focus on both small scale and large scale fisheries, looking at it from a sustainable avenue. How do we build it up? Of course, this has not just national positive impact, but community-based impacts as well, especially when you think about the small scale fisheries aspects. As with many of the GEF projects, there is a regional coordination. So we work with, you know, entities such as the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund and other projects, Pro-Carib Plus project, and all the other entities, UNEP, etc. And we're working together to pull this together. And I must tell you, regional coordination is probably a project on its own. Like just bringing people and projects and entities together should just be a project on its own, not part of a project, because this is a significant amount of work. The knowledge management aspects are not just what we're creating from this project, but what other projects are producing. How do we ramp it up? Not just start from the same place every single time a project cycle comes around. How do we ramp it up? Every project identifies gaps, every single one. At the end of it, there's a list. We can do this. We can do this more. Why don't we start the next project from that starting point, not just start from, you know, where we all start our projects from. So sharing information throughout the region to improve coordination, new activities, and linking these needs to funding opportunities. You know, we identify gaps in funding, we identify gaps in thematic areas. How do we piece those needs to the person that need it? You know, coming from the university system at the UWI, we set our research agenda based on what we think is great to work on. You know, we need to do a lot better in filling those research agenda needs with what nations need and what the region needs, and start from there as well. So I'll leave it here. I know I only have 5 minutes. Thank you very much. That's my contact card. And that's just my picture, just to remind me where my happy place is. And that's the ocean. And I always try to do that as much as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dane. Yeah, love the picture. Thank you so much for your contributions. Last but not least, I will invite Diane for the work that they're doing in St. Lucia on how to establish finance mechanisms for marine conservation in St. Lucia. So we're going to bring up the presentation, but thank you so much, Diane. After this presentation, we have questions, so please know the questions and we will open up the floor after this presentation. Un momento. All right, so maybe any further questions? Whilst we wait for technology to happen, anyone for these presentations so far? No questions? Crystal clear. All right. Just checking if there were any questions. Ah, we have a question. Yeah, the mic, sí, the microphone.
Thank you very much. This question is for everybody on the panel. But my question is that we all know that there is a fundamental lack of data, ocean data, even met data, data on kind of ecosystem services, that kind of thing. How would completely illuminating the Caribbean with data and really vastly improving the amount of data that we collect and use, how would that improve what you guys are all trying to do?
I think that was strategic to put the mic in front of me. So I'll just speak a little bit about the marine spatial planning approach that we've been taking. Marine spatial plans, as you would know, requires a lot of data. But what we've taken up, based on the data that we do have in these countries, what can we get? What is the level of iteration that right now we can get from that data to provide information for policymakers and decision makers and marine management to take effect on that? But fully well knowing that there are limitations to the use of that limited data. And what's the next iteration? Okay, we need to fill these gaps for the next iteration. But I don't want us to get caught up in, we need all this data before we take another step. What can we do with the data we now have? All right, so that's the approach that we've been taking with MSPs.
Thank you. And I would say that's a timely question because tomorrow there will be a workshop on data in the framework of the ProCaribe Plus project. I'm not sure if it's open to everybody, but there is, but yeah, there have been a lot of efforts throughout the time in the region and for example, the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, and I'm sure that all the organizations here have been involved in these regional platform hubs. But the idea and I would like to highlight the one that we are going to discuss tomorrow in the framework of the Ocean Coordination Mechanism. The Ocean Coordination Mechanism is, the Secretariat is with the ProCaribe Plus project coordination team, and they are planning to do this data information hub that includes information from all the agencies involved in the Ocean Coordination Mechanism that are the 7 intergovernmental organizations with action in the region, the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, the regional fisheries mechanisms like CRFM, WCAFC, IOCaribe, IOC UNESCO, until 7, no? And then several countries that are part of the Ocean Coordination Mechanism, but also the countries that are expected to join the Ocean Coordination Mechanism. So yes, let's see what we can see from tomorrow, but I'm sure that the idea is to integrate all the regional information hubs that already exist. There are several efforts, and probably the best approach is to integrate all these existing data frameworks in this new hub. Thank you.
Hi, I think the data exists. I think the problem is that we more or less work too much in silos, and therefore we need to have some partnerships we believe that partnerships can definitely play a role in achieving biodiversity goals, and it's particularly for resource-limited countries. And it's one of the reasons GLISPA is a partnership. It's actually a partnership, and we believe that at the CIS International Conference in Samoa, there was a framework centered around durable partnerships. And it's one of the reasons we started the CTF community of practice, because it allows synergies between the different CTFs from the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and the Caribbean. And we have found that when they share the information, the peer-to-peer learning, we realize that one person in the Caribbean is doing something that probably somebody in the Pacific is also doing, and they can have lessons that they learn well. And so it reduces duplicity. So we really do think that it's not so much about lack of data, but rather sharing and not operating within the silos that we tend to operate within.
Thank you so much. Go back after the presentation of Diane. Diane, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Bonjour. My name is Diana Joseph. I am the program officer at the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund. And today I'm here to present to you on the Marine Health Alliance, which is a sustainable financing mechanism that we at the SLUNCF we've implemented. I just want to, by a show of hands, how many of you have been to St. Lucia, Santa Lucia? Oh, quite a bit of persons, which is good. When we think of St. Lucia, when you think of the Caribbean on the whole, what are some of the things that will come to mind? Turquoise waters, vibrant coral reef, relaxing on sun-kissed beaches. And rightly so, approximately 70 to 80% of visitors to St. Lucia engage in marine-related activities during their stay. From snorkeling and diving to boats, having boat tours, fishing excursions, our coastal ecosystems are not just beautiful, they're economically vital. Marine activities are a major draw to St. Lucia's tourism sector, with coral reefs, beaches, and coastal waters consistently being ranked among our top attractions. According to the regional tourism reports and the St. Lucia Hotel Tourism Association insights, the majority of leisure travelers participate in at least one marine or coastal activity. But beneath this beauty lies a growing challenge. As we've been discussing now, the challenges across the Caribbean, our oceans are definitely under pressure from climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. Yet they remain one of our greatest assets. This presentation today, it explores how collaboration and sustainable financing can transform ocean stewardship and secure a resilient future. So just a little background from the Marine Health Alliance, which we call a catalyst for change in ocean stewardship. So the vision of the Marine Health Alliance is ensuring St. Lucia where resilient marine ecosystems and thriving communities together powered by the committed actions of both locals and visitors. So the Marine Health Alliance was launched under the umbrella of the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund, and it is supported by the Tourism Enhancement Fund. As I said, it's a catalyst for change in St. Lucia's marine conservation landscape. It's not just a program, it's a sustainable financing mechanism that mobilizes resources, builds partnerships, and empowers communities to protect and regenerate coastal ecosystems. So just a little bit about the St. Lucia Tourism Enhancement Fund. It was established by the St. Lucia Hospitality and Tourism Association. It is a private sector-led financing mechanism where visitors to the island, they can contribute a small fee, a nightly fee of $2 as a donation. So this is where they would collect their funds, and the TEF, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, would channel those funds to various initiatives that would benefit both our locals and our visitors. So the Tourism Enhancement Fund is the founding supporter. So through their support, the Marine Health Alliance has been able to provide support to various grants. So some of the focus of the Marine Health Alliance, we're looking at reef protection, mangrove and seagrass restoration, coastal cleanups, and empowering local conservation projects. So these efforts are grounded in science, but again, as we've been speaking about, it's powered by people, from fishers to seamoss farmers to tourism operators and youth leaders. So this ensures that every dollar invested, it delivers triple impact. So for the ecosystems, communities, and climate adaptation. So this year, we launched 2 calls for proposals. The first one, we looked at marine ecosystem restoration and conservation, which is at its advanced stage. Now we're looking at full proposal. Hopefully, we'll be funding those projects sometime in November. And we had a second call looking at marine pollution reduction. So we really wanted to focus a call on innovative ways of dealing with marine pollution. So now we're in the phase of where we're going to be going to full proposals with this one. So how can you help? Okay, so whether you're a policymaker, donor, researcher, or community advocate, there's a role for you in the Marine Health Alliance. If you go to our website, sluncf.org, you will get some more information about the Marine Health Alliance, how you can partner with us, how you can assist. And there is a place where if you are feeling generous, anyone can be able to make a contribution, no matter how small it is. So all of this just shows that together we can build a resilient blue economy that honors biodiversity, uplifts communities, and safeguards our shared ocean heritage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Diane. We forgot the QR code. So sluncf.org. And please help sustain our ecosystems in St. Lucia. So thank you, Diane. I think that was an excellent example of how funding can come from tourists, can come from the hotel association, and really how tourists, because I think that is the question that we get a lot on the islands. So the islands, the main sector is tourism, and all the tourists, or almost all of them, have all, they would like to contribute. They just don't know how. So for us, this example of how tourism works together with a conservation trust fund on the ground and channels the funding then to projects is just one of the examples that we wanted to highlight in this panel. So I'm opening up this dialogue for any questions, comments on what we have seen in this panel or even the other panels that we would have presented on today. Any questions? Stephanie, where's the mic? Yeah. Oh, or we can take any other mic. So please state your name and again, of course, to whom you would like to direct the question. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Stephanie Valdez-Baron. I'm with the Blue Economy Solutions Lab as a consultant developing designing a finance facility for MPAs in the Caribbean. Curious about Daniel, for the Tourism Enhancement Fund. Are there any, that's voluntary, the contributions from the tourist per night, the $2 a night, that's voluntary, right? Do you have any metrics on the percentage of people that are actually volunteering?
I do not have that information that can be made available, but I can say it is something, as Tanya was saying, it's something that most people actually support. So it's we have the participating hotels, the accommodations. So those persons at the end of the stay or before, if you spend 7 nights, 14 US, so it's up to the tourist to say, I want to pay it or I don't want to pay it. So it's completely voluntary.
And how long has it been going on?
So the Tourism Enhancement Fund started in 2013. So that has been established 2013, but the Marine Health Alliance is a new alliance. So now, during my presentation, as I explained, that they would fund various initiatives, but they have decided to partner with the SLUNCF to fund some of our projects. So basically, the first set of funding that we have received, it's from them to put those 2 calls out for proposals.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, it'd be wonderful to maybe chat after to see the proportion, to see if it can be scaled and what the potential could be regionally. Thank you.
Any other questions? Again, also for any of the other panelists that we had earlier today. No, I'm looking around. We're good. If there are no questions, I know the session was long. Coffee breaks are outside waiting for us. Maybe Eduardo, I would hand it over to you for some closing remarks and yeah, just some messages.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thanks everyone for all the panelists, and thanks everyone for staying with us through this long and important conversation. I just, at the beginning of this presentation, I just spoke about the need of having different perspectives coming into the same direction, and this is the spirit of this discussion. We normally, as practitioners, we need those bridges to communicate with the other part of conservation, all the philanthropic, all the donors. So please take advantage of these opportunities. I think in particular, this GCFI session has brought a lot of the agencies that are in charge of creating systems to make those so needed resources available to us. So I really encourage you to go and talk to them because they also want to learn from practitioners what is needed. As we've seen, there are many questions that need to be addressed. So use not just this panel, but go and have lunch, go on a field trip, talk to these people, talk to each other. There are many questions that we don't even know what those questions are. And we think, actually, I think we have the answers, but we just need to come up with those questions. So I really thank the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund for being such a thoughtful partner, really providing a lot of technical support and a lot of guidance and a lot of and a regional vision. This session, it's a reflex of this vision. So thanks everyone. And with this said, we're going to close the session. Remember, we have field trips in the afternoon. And I encourage you to go and talk to the people that you think could help you solve those questions that are part of your work. Also, I would like to ask the panelists if we can come all together and we'll take a photo